On Landline today, the growing row over raw milk cheese.
When I come down to looking at Australian cheeses, I weep because most of them are really bland industrial cheeses and they're just copycat cheeses that don't have any character when you compare them to the great benchmarks of the world.
Authorities across eastern Australia gear up to tackle plague locusts.
When you're getting densities like swarm densities we're seeing now up to 50 per square metre, they can have a huge impact on crops.
And Dessert Storm. The knives are out in the quest for blue ribbon baking honours at royal shows.
Oh, the judges here are ferocious.
They should only have ice on top.
Yes.
Icing all over covers too many multitudes of sins.
Hello, I'm Anne Kruger. Welcome to the program. Coming to you this week from the Royal Melbourne Show, which, as you can see, has a distinctly dairy taste to it this year.
Australian farmers are incredible because they've gone through quite a drought for the last few years. Their milk prices have dropped, and recession in the world, and for them to maintain it and to work through that and to have the fortitude to keep working, I admire them.
Well, the Monty Python troupe first coined the phrase "blessed are the cheesemakers" in the edgy comedy The Life of Brian. But the issue of whether Australian consumers should be allowed to eat products made from raw milk is causing an even more unholy row. The regulator, Food Standards Australia and New Zealand, is currently reviewing national guidelines on the use of unpasteurised milk in dairy products. It's triggered a fiery debate among the cheesemakers over whether the current strict standards deny Australians access to the benchmark cheeses of the world.
Off you go, Tinto.
We're running about 120 goats, Saanen and British Alpine breed, and we're milking at the moment 65 goats, probably heading towards 80 in the next kidding, which will be in August.
We know our goats as individuals, we name them in themes. If you know every goat individually, you know if they're well, how they're going, because you have a sense of that animal. So if the animal does something unusual, like it's standing at the back, if it's normally at the front, we know she must be feeling sick. There's no other reason for that. So it's great in terms of your relationship with them, and it makes it interesting too, you know, when you walk out amongst the goats, you see them as individuals.
Love is in the air at the Holy Goat Organic Dairy and Cheese Farm near Castlemaine in Victoria. Former school teachers Anne-Marie Monda and her partner Carla Mers spent years travelling the world as woofers, willing workers on organic farms, before buying their 80-hectare Sutton Grove property. Now, after 10 years, their produce is considered the benchmark of Australian quality, and they believe love is a big part of their award-winning formula.
I think it's paramount. The feeling that we and our workers have for these beautiful animals and this lovely farm is the foundation of the beginning of a beautiful cheese. So if you are connected to your animals and you get this beautiful quality milk from them, of course you're going to have a wonderful cheese that you can make from that.
The beauty of the goats, you know, they're a gorgeous animal, the way they are with each other, how they look in the paddock, what it's like milking them, massage their udders. It's very tactile and sensate, I suppose. And then, so all of that, you're connected in, you're in the zone of here, this environment, these goats. And then when the milk comes out the vat every morning, you know, we've got fresh milk we make cheese from. I am still, after doing this for 10 years, I watch the milk come out and I'm amazed. It's beautiful. It's this white, beautiful, luxurious thing goes into the bucket, and that's the beginning of making cheese.
How many barrels are you doing with that?
The self-taught cheesemakers now produce more than 10 tonnes of product every year, specialising in fresh curd, white mould and yeast-rinded cheeses. But unlike traditional European farmhouse cheesemakers, they're not allowed to use raw milk. Under Australian food safety regulations, their milk must be pasteurised.
For me, it's a completely unnecessary stage, and it hurts the milk. It's not a natural thing to happen to the milk. And we've got milk, we make cheese every day, we've got night and morning milk. It moves 3 metres from the dairy line to the vat. I know that I should just pour that straight into the bucket, set it as curd, and I can test if there's anything wrong with it. We are very sophisticated in our lab tests. We do them now, just do them to the raw milk. We can know if it's clean or not.
The unpasteurised cheese is one that truly reflects the environment that we're living in here. I know that all of the environment surrounding the cheese factory is ultimately in our cheese factory. So these granitic soils, these beautiful native grasses, this incredible remnant bush around the cheese factory, it's going to impact on the kind of cheese that you make if it's unpasteurised. If you pasteurise, that's limited.
The regulator, Food Standards Australia and New Zealand, or FSANZ, is now reviewing Australia's cheese standards and has recommended allowing some hard cheeses, such as cheddar and parmesan, to be made from raw milk, but not the more volatile, soft white cheeses made at Holy Goat.
It's very important that we ensure that any of these products like raw milk cheeses that are allowed to be brought into or made in Australia are safe for people to eat. There have been lots of well-documented cases of illness both here and particularly overseas from drinking raw milk or eating raw milk cheeses. In most people, it might just be a case of an upset tummy and a few days off work, but it can lead to really severe consequences in some people, including kidney failure and even death. And we need to make sure that the products here are safe.
The Slow Food Movement is running a campaign to have the raw milk regulations changed and is urging its supporters across Australia to sign an online petition of Federal Parliament. So far it's gathered more than 5,000 signatures and has the support of some of the nation's highest profile chefs.
Many great cheeses made from raw milk.
They've joined Regional Food Australia in this YouTube media campaign to get the public on side before FSANZ presents its final recommendations to government in December.
Without great produce, the Rockpool restaurant can't be a great restaurant.
Sydney-based Neil Perry says chefs like himself feel strongly about having a choice of the best possible produce.
It's really obvious we should have both kinds, raw and pasteurised, because, you know, raw milk has more complexity in flavour, so it makes a more complex cheese. And the great cheese-making nations of the world make their best cheeses from raw milk. And some of the cheeses that are the pinnacles and the benchmark are raw milk cheeses, and we should be able to, you know, in the right environment, make cheese like that can reach its full potential.
Do you share any of the public health concerns?
Oh, look, I think that there are public health concerns, but they need to be managed in that the people who are going to do it are going to have to be managed and focused on doing it properly. But clearly there are cheeses made around the world, and you don't see all the French and the Swiss and the Italians falling on the ground dying every 5 minutes.
Well, the European Union does have processes in place to try to manage the risks associated with these types of cheeses, but even there you still do have problems. So, for example, last year there was an outbreak of foodborne illness associated with a particular type of raw milk cheese, and while there were only 27 reported illnesses, there were 8 deaths, and that was in Germany, Austria and the Czech Republic. So it is really important to make sure that we do have good risk management processes in place, because it's really not worth dying over consuming products that should be safe for people to eat.
We got a Brie, Little Wash Ryan King River Gold, that's won quite a few awards for us. Middle of the Blue, which was one of the first cheeses we made. And this is Capricornia, which has won the Grand Dairy Awards a couple of times.
David Brown has been making cheese for more than 20 years and is president of the Australian Specialty Cheese Association. His Millua cheese factory in northeastern Victoria attracts more than 150,000 visitors a year. He claims the industry has no appetite for raw milk cheese.
I don't see any value in that at all. At present, our major challenge is competing against a lot of imported cheeses from Europe that are all made out of pasteurised milk cheese, and that's that's the situation as we see it today, and I think the bit about the benchmark cheeses being made out of raw milk is quite irrelevant. There's many of the world's best cheeses are made out of pasteurised milk anyway. In fact, the French only make 6% of their cheese out of raw milk, so 94% of French cheeses are made out of pasteurised milk anyway. In terms of our competitive position, we're competing against those 94% made out of pasteurised milk. So I just don't see that as an argument.
Tomorrow, with your help and with your action, Roquefort will be back in Australia. Thank you very much, Will.
David Brown says Will Studd is loved by the French industry after successfully using world trade laws to have Roquefort allowed into Australia 4 years ago. And he would be the biggest beneficiary of any change to the current import restrictions on other raw milk cheeses.
Thank you.
So as a cheese merchant, don't you have a vested interest in allowing raw milk cheeses, because the more you're able to import and sell, the more money you'll make?
Do you know, I've spent the last 30 years in this country trying to promote Australian cheese. So my heart is about selling wonderful cheese wherever it comes from. I look at the benchmarks of the world and I worship them. When I come down to looking at Australian cheeses, I weep, because most of them are really bland industrial cheeses, and they're just copycat cheeses that don't have any character when you compare them to the great benchmarks of the world.